Good morning, everyone. Ooh. Hello. My name is Mary Beth Harrison Cunningham. I happen to be the manager of our Family Resource Center, and I'm really excited to have you here for our first session entitled Navigating Teen Turbulence, Practical Strategies for Parenting Adolescents. And I want to introduce you to Dr. Unati Jain. Dr. Jain is a certified youth behavior change expert and studies behavioral patterns. She strongly believes that to build strong young adults, parents must shift from control to connection. She is a TEDx speaker and shares her insights on her talk, How to Move from Control to Connection. She is also the author of A Parent-Teen Journey, which is a wealth of anecdotes and strategies with guidance on how to move from control to connection with your child, especially geared for immigrant families. She is a proponent of self-exploration and nurturing connection. And all through her talks and workshops, she identifies the various components of control that hinder child's growth mindset and limit their potential. She works with parents and youth who struggle with issues such as doubt, anxiety, low self-esteem, confidence issues, and a lack of growth mindset. Her target audience is 12 to 26 years and parents. And I'd like to welcome Dr. Unati Jain.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Yesterday, I had a meeting with my public speaking coach, and we had an argument. She said, "Why is it that you want to start with this slide? You're a keynote speaker." And I told her, I said, "You don't understand the audience in the room. When they come into the room, they're parents. It's a very, very emotional topic. They have the look in their eyes. Let's see what she has to say about parenting. Let's see what she's going to teach me that I don't already know." So let me put a disclaimer right in the beginning. I'm not here to teach you about parenting. You are the best parent there can be. There is nobody who can do this better than you. What I'm here to do is really to share with you my 10 years of research, my anecdotes, my coaching experience, and my dealings with children, young adults, parents, on the multiple issues that they encounter every day while raising them to be our leaders for tomorrow. And that's why I'm here. So, I'm no parenting expert. I just study behaviors. I pondered over this question for years. Should you be your child's best friend? And I often hear parents say, "No, you need to be a parent." I vote against it. I say, you can be a parent as well as a best friend. And why do I say this? I say this because of my personal journey as an immigrant mother in this country, which I think a lot of people would associate with in this room. As a single mother, my child is now 20 years old. There were multiple challenges that I experienced that I shared with my child. And as I grew in my journey, and I look around me, and I'm a research geek, by the way, so I do a lot of research on the numbers, on what our young adults are going through today. So as I conduct research, and I'm going to share the numbers with you on my next slide, my belief that you need to be your child's best friend, and you can be your child's best friend while being a parent, becomes real every day. With that, let me share some numbers with you. Suicide rates raising sky high. We look at our phones in the morning, it gives me goosebumps when I see a high school student, a college school student jumped off because they were facing excessive anxiety, or they thought they were depressed, or they couldn't meet the expectations of their parents, or they couldn't meet the grades that were set forth for them. Gun violence. Somebody walked into a school and shot other kids because they couldn't handle their own emotions. They didn't know emotional regulation. So a lot of people lost their lives, along with the person who was shooting. Can you imagine that teen or that young adult? Can you imagine what they must be going through for them to put a gun to their heads and shoot themselves and shoot other people around them? Anxiety, a very common phenomenon. Something that our young adults experience, something that we all experience as adults, something which is very prevalent in our community today. Depression and anxiety. And I'm going to, at the outset, if there are any doctors in the room or any therapists in the room or anybody in the medical field, I offer my humble apologies at the outset. I'm not a medicine person, so there will be times in this presentation where I will say I'm against medicine, but that's just me. That is not by any means, am I trying to degrade the medical profession or saying that they're not doing it right? No means, but I'm just not a proponent of medicine. When we look at these numbers, the depressive episodes are increasing day by day. The anxiety and the depression episodes are increasing day by day. And I hear more and more parents coming to me and saying, you're a last resort. Do you think you can do something before I put my child on antidepressants or anti-anxiety pills? And I always tell them, give me 3 months. I will try my best, but you as a parent need to work with me along with the child. And I've had some success rates. I think if all of us together join hands as parents, as educators, as teachers, we can save our young adults from taking those antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills and work on their own confidence and self-esteem. Now, without any judgment in the room, may I request everybody to kindly take out your cell phones. And please take this quiz. This quiz will take 3 minutes and 10 seconds. Please enter the correct email because you will get your results on your email. This is by no means you judging yourself as a parent. This is just so that we all together can understand each of the parenting styles, and for the next 40 minutes that we spend together, we can take the maximum out of this presentation. So please take a few minutes. No rush. Let's all breathe. Anybody in the room who cannot access it? Everybody good? Take your time, no rush. Read the questions over and over again so you can get the right answer. I see a lot of heads looking up. Are we all done? Anybody still working on it? We'll give it last 30 seconds. Take your time. I do get 15 minutes extra, as Mary Beth said, so I think we're good, right? Okay. Now that we have answered some of these questions for ourselves without any judgment, let's break down these parenting styles so we can take the best out of the next 45 minutes. There are in total 4 parenting styles. The first one is called the authoritarian. How many Gen Xers in the room? Do you believe that we were raised, I'm a Gen X myself, we were raised with the authoritarian parenting style? Do as I do, do as I say, don't do as I do. If you don't do something, you were punished. There was no room for mistakes. There was perfection. That is the authoritarian parenting style. Does it work today? If you use this parenting style, you're sure short creating defiance in your household. So that is the authoritarian parenting style. This is the authoritative, which is, it has a nurturing relationship. It has a portion of authoritative where there are boundaries. We don't call them strict rules, but we call them boundaries. And boundaries and consequences are balanced. But it's a very nurturing environment where we answer the why. Somebody just asked me when I was inside that my child is 15 and constantly asks me why. My son, up until last year, he's 20 now, did exactly the same thing, and sometimes does it today too. When they're pushing boundaries, they'll ask the same question over and over and over again and ask the why until you get irritated and you want to smack them. Right? This is just them pushing boundaries. And I did give a small strategy on how to manage that. It is you being firm and repeating the same instruction very calmly, very patiently, and letting them know that I just answered your why. But answering the why is extremely important to today's generation. Not because they're asking for it, but because they're curious. And as parents, it's our responsibility to fulfill that curiosity. And here's what I'm going to leave you with. If you don't fulfill that curiosity, if you don't answer the why, they will go and find those answers outside. And maybe the answers that they get outside are not the answers you want them to get. So it's better that as parents, we answer that why. That we call the authoritative parenting style, where also there is open communication, where there is no punishment. There are boundaries, but there are no punishments, so they're allowed to ask all of the questions that they want to ask. Then we have the third one, which is permissive parenting style, where we have limited rules and no expectations. I allow my child to do whatever they want to do. Because I, as a parent, want to be liked. I don't want my child to dislike me. And what does that do to our child? When we don't give them any boundaries and they can't create structure themselves, as they grow up and they become leaders of tomorrow and they enter organizations, they don't know how to respect authority because they don't know structure, because they were never given structure, because their parent wanted them to like them. They wanted to be a friend but not be a parent. And the last one is the uninvolved parent. Do whatever you want to do. There is no discipline. There is no expectation. I'm here as a parent. I've given you birth. I will give you food. You have a house to live in. But beyond that, I have no expectations of you and don't have any expectations of me. So these are the 4 parenting styles. Now, let's go on and identify who is Gen Z and why is it so close to my heart, and I'm sure everybody else's heart in this room, because everybody in this room has a teen or close to a teen or getting out of a teen. Fair enough? Gen Zs. Why do I study Gen Zs? Not only because I'm surrounded by them, not because my child is one, but because this is the most anxious and the most depressed generation that we have ever seen. Internet was invented around 1985. It was fairly new. The first Gen Z was born between some say 95, some say 97. I take 95. We went to restaurants. We were very enamored by the internet. Baby was 6 months old. What did we do? We took out our iPads and we put it in front of them. We took out our iPhones. We put it in front of them. Anytime that we wanted to do something in the house, here is an iPad, here is an iPhone, here is a screen. And they were born with a screen in their hand. They don't know what it is to live without a screen. What did that do to them? That gave them anxiety. That made them depressed. They don't know what human connection is. So they pine for human connection. These are the people who've seen wars. These are the people who've seen the pandemic. They've seen Black Lives Matter. They've seen gun violence. They've seen people come out on the roads. They've seen everything that every other generation hasn't seen, which has led, yes, the Me Too movement, which has led to increased anxiety and depression. And we, as a generation, as parents, are very quickly putting these kids in a box and saying they're so entitled, they can't get off their phones, they don't know how to interact, they don't want to go out. I'm going to ask every parent in the room, why? Have we ever thought how low their confidence level is, how low their self-esteem is because of what they've experienced? That is why I do what I do. I study this generation because this generation has amazing amount of power. Gen Z. My son is a Gen Z. I'm surrounded by Gen Zs. They have a lot of potential. What we need to do as parents, as educators, as teachers, is harness this potential. So when a parent comes and tells me, my child doesn't want to talk to me, I turn around and tell them that I defy that. Because this generation wants human connection, especially because they've never had it. They're terrified of it, but they want it. It's just how we connect with them. We have a Gen Z sitting right here, am I wrong? You want human connection, right? That's what makes them tick. Now let's talk about some of the biological changes. Lisa goes to school. She's 13 years old. She reaches school. The teacher is teaching and giving homework. Lisa is unattentive in class. Because she does not have the power to focus in class, she's worried about the hair growth that's happening under her arms. She's worried about she's looking fat or thin. She's worried about the hair that's growing on her legs. She's worried about her breasts growing, about her body changing, which she has no idea about. And she cannot go and talk to anybody because she's scared. She's petrified of what's happening in her body. Sure, as educator, she's learning all of this in class. But she's petrified of all of the changes that are happening. She doesn't know how to deal with them. She's unable to focus in class. When she comes home and she gets a bad grade, the parent says, "You have no focus. You don't want to study. You don't want to move ahead in life. You cannot do anything." What happens to the child? Self-esteem plummets. Confidence goes. And she's wondering in her head, what did I do wrong? I don't know how to deal with this. Michael is sitting at home on his phone. Dad comes and says, "Get off your phone." Michael throws a fit. Not because he's upset with Dad, but he does not know how to emotionally regulate himself. He does not know where the anxiety is coming from. So he's looking down at the phone, hoping that the anxiety will go away. The father says, "You're constantly on your phone." He storms out of the room. And Michael has no idea what just happened, but he just knows that he does not know how to control his emotions. This is what I hear every day from every parent. Is my child is throwing a fit. Your child is not throwing a fit because they want to. They're throwing a fit because they don't know how to control themselves. They're finding themselves. They're exploring their identity. They're exploring their relationships. Parents are wondering, my child is going away from them. Children are saying, "Oh, my parents are at home. I know they're not going to go anywhere. Right now I need to go and find out what are my real relationships outside." And parents are wondering, "Oh my God, my child is going away from me." So the child cannot come home and discuss all of this with the parents because they are scared of an emotional backlash. Is everybody with me so far? Am I putting anybody to sleep? Not yet? Thank you. Moving on. So, they're forming their identity. They have these multiple questions in their heads. Why, when, how, what is going to happen to me? What is going to happen tomorrow? Am I going to go to school? Am I going to go to college? How am I going to function? Am I going to have friends? Are people looking at me, judging me with my body, my hair? They have all of these questions as they're entering the world. And they don't know how to deal with them. They have no idea. And what do? We put teens in a box. Complete losers. Oh my God, I have a teen. They don't want to do anything. They only want to be on their phone. They're hanging out with people they shouldn't be hanging out with. So now, everybody's thinking, that's all good. We read these in books. What do you have to say? How do I move from control to connection? Which is a part of my TED Talk. Mary Beth reached out to me and she says, "I'd like you to talk around your TED Talks." So here is what I'm going to say. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to share 5 of my cornerstones that I have developed based on anecdotes, my experiences, research data, and my coaching dealings with children as well as parents. So I am a coach. I'm a researcher. I study behaviors and I do coaching, one-to-one, group coaching, and I'm a keynote speaker and I do workshops. So the 5 cornerstones that I've developed are very research-based and anecdotal. The first one, let's first look at the common challenges that you experience as parents, that we all experience as parents. How many people in this room would say, "I get one-word answers from my children"? We all do, right? So we have communication barriers. conflicting expectations. Our child wants something else, we want something else. Emotional volatility. Both. We are emotionally volatile as well as our children are emotionally volatile. Social media, constantly stuck on it. Phones, constantly stuck on it. And pushing boundaries. One of my most famous workshops is rules and boundaries for teens. These are some of the common challenges. Anybody wants to add any more to it? Anything that stands out? To me, these are the 5 that stands out. So, yes, please. Correct. Oh, that is so well put. Thank you for sharing that self-advocacy. I think here is what I'm going to say. Ask yourself, each of you as adults, do you struggle with self-advocacy? Because when we were children, we were never taught how to self-advocate, how to get up on the stage and say, I am just that good. I struggled. I still struggle sometimes to go up and say, this is what I can do and this is what I'm worth. So self-advocacy, thank you for sharing that, very grateful. I think we all need to tell our children how to get up and self-advocate. So with that, the 5 cornerstones. The first one, creating space for healthy conversations. And that looks different for different people. A lot of my clients come to me and say that, where do you think we can create that space? And I tell them, this is a very personal choice. For instance, when my son was 10 years old, like every other parent in the room, I was driving them all around from one activity to the other activity to the other activity, right? We all do that, right? And that was the time that I started a boundary where both our phones went into the glove compartment. And now there were rides when for months no conversations were exchanged, as in no deep conversations were exchanged. But there was that one time when a very deep conversation was exchanged, and either my child learned something about me or I learned something about them. One of my clients, they sit with their child every evening while they do their homework for 2 hours. So while the child is doing the homework, they sit on their laptop. But those 2 hours is a safe space where they don't converse, but the child knows that those 2 hours, if they want to speak or if they want to voice any of their concerns, then those 2 hours would be the point that they could. And the 3 words to create healthy conversations: active listening, consistency, and trust. And these 3 things can only be developed with creating space. Often, when a child comes back home from school, the first question the parent asks, how was your day? What did you do? And the child says, nothing. I didn't do anything. The day was okay. Can you imagine if you came back home from work and somebody was standing at the door and say, can you give me a download of your entire day? You're going to turn around and say, dude, can you give me like 20 minutes, please? Can you give me some time to get my breath together? I've had a very rough day. And that's where the child shuts down. So I'm going to ask you this. What is your space? What space would you like to create with your child to have those healthy conversations, which you can be consistent, you can create trust, and you can give them undivided attention? And that is the first cornerstone. Are they looking for it? They're absolutely looking for it. And I can put 10 Gen Zs in front of you who will all turn around and say, we want that connection.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every child wants to connect with their parents or wants to connect where they feel heard, where they feel seen. The two words we adults look for every single day. I want to be heard. I want to be seen. The second cornerstone is the power and the choice cornerstone. As research suggests, when you have power, you don't look for a choice. When you have choices, you don't search for power. I decided to use this as my teen raising strategy. Like every other child, my child was addicted to social media when he was 16 and a half. And while he was following boundaries up until 16 and a half, 17, at 17, his teen brain kicked in. And he refused to follow any boundaries. What happened was he would be on social media and on his phone till late at night and started missing the bus in the morning. I spent a few sleepless nights in fear. Until I woke up one day and my research brain kicked in. And I discovered the power in the choice strategy. I told him, I said, you can have the phone at night, provided you can make it to the bus in the morning. If you don't make it to the bus in the morning, your pocket money goes away for the week. I take that back. If you don't take the bus in the morning, then you pay for a ride or you get a ride with your friend. He agreed. He lost all his pocket money the next week and could not make it to school. The following week, he learned to use his phone responsibly and made it to the bus on time. I had learned to empower him. Boundaries are extremely important, along with consequences, when we give choices. So the power and the choice strategy works. That was my second cornerstone. How many people in this room have at some point in time told their child, look at the neighbor's child, look at XYZ. They can do this, this, this. You can't. I've done it. They can study, they can do academics, they can do sports, they have friends, they're outgoing, they're so confident. Look at you. As parents, in our heads, we're thinking we're motivating our children. But guess what you're doing? You're killing their confidence. You're taking away power from them. You're taking away their self-esteem. And you're telling them you're not good enough. And in the child's brain, they're thinking, oh, well, you like the neighbor's child so much. That's all right. Why don't you look at him? I'm going to do what I'm going to do. Judgment and comparison kills self-esteem and confidence. And I'm going to take a little detour because I'm getting extremely emotional and I'm getting goosebumps. So please excuse me on this one. We all struggled with comparison and judgment at some point in time. And we constantly judge ourselves. And can you imagine how much a teen or a young adult judges themselves on a daily basis? When their bodies are not okay, their minds are not okay, they're growing every day, they're constantly questioning themselves. And you are their foundation. When you tell them that you are not good enough because the neighbor's child is better than you, their foundation gets shaky.
Example. And
but you don't say the second part, that you're not good enough or you're not doing that. They're doing that, you're not, though. And I know it might be understood implicitly that you're saying it anyway, but how about saying it in a way that I'm giving you an example, or this is a model that it's worth it to look at and to learn from, because this is the only example or model that I have comes across my mind now. That's why I brought it up for you. So is this acceptable or still have the negative impact? Thank you.
I'm going to say, I'm not going to use the word acceptable because every parent is different, but I am going to say it'll have a very negative impact. The reason being that two things. One, you're creating competition between the two siblings. Second, you're telling the child that the second sibling is better than the first one, so you're killing their self-esteem, and they don't feel unique anymore. If you would like to ask them to model somebody, then let it be outside the house. Let it be somebody who is not a friend or a peer, but somebody who is maybe, who's in their generation but has done something which is worth recognizing. But when you do it within the household, or when you do it with friends and with peers, you're taking away their uniqueness, and you're creating competition, so it has a negative impact. Thank you. Sure.
What if a parent is not comparing the children? Actually, that's not a vocabulary they're using at home. But the child itself, is comparing to everybody else. Because a lot of the times it's not that we do it, but the society, I guess, it makes the children to be very self-aware.
Yes.
And they tend to compare themselves to others.
Oh,
what do we do
absolutely.
in that side?
You listen. They will compare themselves, absolutely. Every child compares themselves when they're growing up, especially when they're in their teen years, because they're not confident in their own bodies. They tend to compare themselves because their confidence is low. You give them a space to vent. And what I tell every parent, when a child comes to you with something like that, your initial question is, because you don't know what they're asking for. So you ask, do you want advice? Do you want me to just listen to you? Or do you want me to share something else with you? And that will give you a clear, very clear thing. What is the child looking for? Because most of the times, the child is just looking to vent. Thank you. Moving on, respect. Yesterday, one of my clients came to me and said, I am fed up, Unnati. I don't know what to do. I'm constantly yelling at my child, and my child is constantly yelling. Does that tell you anything? Your child is yelling because you're yelling. You're creating disrespect by disrespecting the child. They're growing up. They're forming their identity. When we disrespect another human, that could be 13 years old or 55 years old, it's still disrespect. And what we're telling them is, this is the way you behave. So respect is a two-way street. You want respect, you need to give respect. It doesn't mean if the child is 13 years old that you need to treat them any other way that you would like to be treated. So if there is disrespect in your household, you can change that by looking at yourself. The minute you change your delivery, the disrespect from the child will change. Trust. It takes years and years and years to build trust. And teenage is the time that you can use this trust to your advantage, to develop this trust. A child's brain starts registering things between 1 and 7 years old. And as you go into the teen years, this trust begins to form even deeper connections. We can form trust in various ways. Showing up to all of their games, making sure that we are doing everything on time, remembering their friends' names. asking them every day what they did in school, identifying with each of their friends, reaching out to their friends' parents, speaking to them, remembering their conversations, remembering their likes and dislikes. These are all the things that form trust. And this is the fifth cornerstone, which can turn control into connection, which we take very lightly. But it takes years and years to develop. So, to go over, am I out of time? I'm okay. So to go over all of the things that we just spoke about, the 5 cornerstones, create space for healthy conversations. Find out, what is your why? Where is that space that you'd like to take? Give choices. The more choices you give, the easier it will be. Let me give you an example. Bella tells her mom, I have a party tonight to go to, and I will be back at 11 o'clock. There is one response that the mom can have. 2 responses. Take a pick. One response can be, no, Bella, you're not going to the party and you will not come back home at 11 o'clock. The second response can be, okay, you're going to a party. That's okay, but we have certain ground rules in the house. 1, I don't think I can agree at 11 o'clock. Let's agree on 10:30. I will drop you to the party. I will pick you up from the party. I would like to know who all are going to the party. I'd like to have the numbers of 2 of your friends. If you're okay with following all of these boundaries, sure, you can go. What are the chances that you'll get a defined answer? Very little. So it's a choice that we make as parents on how do we want to instill those boundaries? How do we want to, what consequences do we want to put to those boundaries? And I'm going to leave you with this. Control teaches compliance. Connection inspires confidence. The most confidence that a child gets is when a parent believes in them, is there for them, trusts them, does not compare them, does not have a judgment, and has umpteen amount of active listening skills by finding that space to create those conversations. So as you drive back, I'd like you to ponder over this. What is your connection space? Is it a walk in the park? Is it putting phones in the glove compartment? Is it the 2 hours in the evening when the child is doing homework? Find that connection spot and see how your control shifts to connection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jane. We have probably a couple minutes. Were there any other questions that you would like to ask before you move on to your next session? I'm very sorry.
As the young adults, they are going to face a world with have a little bit of failures also in it. How do you say that you have to expect failures? You are not. I know you are special at home, but in the world, you are one among the thousands of kids who are trying for various competition. How do you get the self-confidence plus the ability to accept failure in teens?
How do you teach them? By normalizing failure in your household. By just normalizing it and saying, failure is a learning experience. Every time you fail, you learn. If you don't fail, you don't learn. I think normalizing failure in the house is very, very essential. And listening to them when they come, without trying to solve their problem. When they come and say they failed, just normalize it and let them vent. Let them process. Give them the time to feel that failure and to come out of it. Make sense? I hope I answered your question.
You had one slide showing the communication barrier. One of the bullets is different expectations from the parents versus the peers, I think. Yes, that one. What is your advice if your expectation is different than the friend expectation? Some examples, how much makeup to put on for a 12-year-old. Another example, a weird one we just heard yesterday, that we wanted to host a party for her volleyball team, and she said, I don't want to be the host. I like going to a party, but I don't like hosting a party. Small examples, but what's your advice on when the expectations are different between her friends and you?
Difference between how to normalize the difference between, I'm not sure, I'm just trying to clarify the question.
No, it's more the conflicting expectations and values between her friends and the family value.
So one is by modeling behavior. There is a very high chance that if a parent measures themselves with the people around them, that impacts the child. So that's one, by modeling the right behavior. Two, by telling them that they're unique. They don't need to be another person. They need to be themselves. And there is no another person like them. So just because the neighbor's child is putting excessive makeup and going to a party, that doesn't need to be. They can turn around and say, I don't fit in. You say, you don't need to fit in, because there is only one of you. There is nobody else like you. Is that going to create an impact immediately? Probably not. But when we repeat the same dialogue, it settles in their brains. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, just to confirm. If the question is they fit in, that's different. If they feel they wanted to do the putting makeup on them, but our family value is different, I guess we go back to the boundary to reinforce.
Yes, so that's a tricky one, because your family values, so I would enforce a boundary around it. Yes, I would enforce a boundary, but not a very strict boundary that they lie to you. So you have to be willing to negotiate that boundary a little bit, because if you keep that boundary super tight, then they're going to lie to you. Then they probably won't do it at home, but they will go outside and do it. So to come to a happy medium. Just one last thing. Today, we're offering, just for today, we're offering a 10% off. There are coupons in the front. It's called FCPS10. You can use that coupon code only for group coaching. And group coaching offers you a whole lot of things. So if you have multiple children, that would be for you. So FCPS10, FCPS all caps 10. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will be actually having Dr. Jane's book at the Family Resource Center Library. So give us a little time to get that into our library, but that will be an option for you to check out as well. All right, everyone, thank you so much. And we have another session coming in here shortly, and then, of course, the lecture hall. So we look forward to seeing you in those sessions as well. And again, Dr. Jane, thank you so much.